Hey, and welcome back to Jadonna Live, a space that's passionate, honest, and non threatening, where people can come as they are without feeling like they have to have it all together. A mantra I love is come as you are, be open and honest enough to show up authentically, but then to still live like you're trying, put yourself out there, try to be vulnerable. Um, and don't accept the status quo as the end all be all. So thanks so much for being here. Super excited for the first episode of the year. And we will be speaking about one-on-one coaching with a dear colleague of mine, Jess Boots, and we met in a really cool entrepreneurial group called Authentic Audience. So super sweet. Thanks again for coming. And yeah, I just got back from a whirlwind of a weekend. Husband and I went to Nashville to go to a wedding of a high school buddy of mine. And it was so lovely. It was literally perfect. So cute, right in the heart of the city. Didn't really get any honky tonk vibes because we weren't there long enough, but just overall really fun. It's always cool connecting back with high school people. Well, if you had good relationships, which I did. I know many people who either have none of those relationships or bad ones. So I feel you. It's all good. But for those who have listened to the show before, thanks so much. Please go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and rate it 5 stars if you have. And if you're new, welcome. Again, I hope you just enjoy the show. And if you're here from Jess's newsletter, and from her world, well, thanks so much. She does some pretty cool work, so I'm really excited to get into that with you all. So, yeah, reach out at jadonnalive@gmail.com if you got any questions or comments about the show, just in general. Usually, I have a monthly affirmation segment. Um, that's not happening this month. It's okay. We're going to shed things that we just don't have the capacity for. And today, didn't get around to it. So it is what it is. But without further ado, let's go ahead and move on over to the What Are You Into Lately segment with a dear friend, Jess. And I will see you on the other side. All right. Well, welcome back to the What Are You Into Lately segment. In this segment, I chat with folks about what they are into. And today I've got a lovely guest I cannot wait to introduce. So, Jess Boots, CEO and founder of Lead and Be Well, author, leadership and wellness coach, yoga teacher, and mama, here to remind you that you deserve to be well when leading a life of impact. And so, as a former teacher and school leader, she's here for the journey of learning, growth, and healing. She has a heart for anyone connected to the work of trying to make the world a better place, educators, parents, thought leaders, yoga teachers, writers, etc. And she believes we're all here to make a positive impact in the world in our own way and find so much joy in helping others step into their own leadership, whether in their family, work, or life, more confidently and with a lot of love. So, Jess, I was like, ooh, what a like heart opening sort of bio. Very sweet. I really like that. So welcome to the podcast, Jess.
Oh,
Thanks so much for joining.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and share something with your community too.
For sure. So Jess and I have been trying to make this happen for so long. I always tell people I had so many plans and then I got pregnant. And then that derails, if that happens to anyone, it's like that derails any plans
Yeah.
you can ever have. Um, So excited to finally have a Jess back on. And yeah, today we're really going to focus on one component of what she does. She does a ton of stuff, which is incredible, but really want to kind of just hone in on that coaching part. And so when reviewing your work, it was really clear that your work intersects with that self-love arm of Jadonna Live. And so that's where I'm excited to focus today, specifically on your one-on-one coaching. But before we kind of get into that, I love when guests can give listeners that 40,000-foot view of who you are and your offerings. If there's any more you have to add.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think the big zoomed out view is that I am an educator. I've always been an educator in my professional life. I taught elementary and middle school, and now I educate in new ways. So I educate through teaching yoga, through motherhood, through coaching, through writing. But my love of learning and supporting others with learning has been such a through line in my life. And yeah, I also think that at this stage of life, but kind of forever, like nature is a big teacher for me. So in my coaching, in my yoga, in my writing, there's also a big theme of how connected we are to the world around us and how that can teach us and reflect back to us so much about kind of who we are and what we need. So, yeah, that theme of learning, I think, is a really strong one that helps people know a little bit about me.
And it's one of those things that you never stop doing. It's like whether you want to or not, you're learning throughout
Yes.
the rest of your life. So I love that. And so kind of leaning into that one-on-one coaching component, when did you start coaching specifically and kind of like lifelong learner yourself? Okay, get that. But what made you want to start that in like an official capacity with folks?
Yeah. Um, so when I was an educator and I was teaching middle school, I had my first experience on the receiving end of coaching. So there was an instructional coach in our school, and it was so tremendously impactful for my growth as a teacher. And so it just like sparked. I immediately was like, oh, I want to do this one day. So I took on more leadership roles in my middle school and spent 5 years being our instructional coach. But that role, I had the opportunity and privilege to coach every single person in the building, regardless of subject and grade. And I learned so much. I read and took trainings and learned so much about not just how to teach people how to teach, right? But how to support their well-being as a teacher and their connections between others on the staff. So that was a big foundational part of my life when I was still within the school system. And then when I had my daughter, I took a break and I left the school and took a little bit of time to heal from miscarriages and pregnancy loss and kind of figure out like how do I want to be of service in the world. And my favorite part of my role from before was coaching. And so I did more learning to figure out, well, how do I translate that from perhaps an entrepreneurial lens? Like, how do I start my own business and support? At first, I just was going to do what I did before, like, let me coach educators. But very quickly, people came to me with, well, but I'm going through a job change. Can you coach me on that? I was like, "I don't know. I think so." And, so I've done a tremendous amount of learning through, CTI, Coactive, Institute, or Training Institute, and their coaching model for transformational coaching is incredible. And also Elena Aguilar is a big teacher for me. She does transformational coaching that's based in education, but is applicable everywhere. So all that to say, in my new chapter of being a business owner and a coach, I took that foundation from supporting educators holistically into creating spaces for clients, regardless of their profession, regardless of their personal circumstances, to feel more empowered and aligned and grounded and purposeful in their life. And I am obsessed with it. I like love my days where I get to meet with coaching clients.
Oh, I love that. Who doesn't love talking to someone about something they love to do? Um, and so with that, I hated to bring this energy so soon, but there are so many people, so many like self-claimed coaches out there. One I even had an experience with that was like astronomical and didn't end up being exactly what I thought.
Mm.
And so I guess give us some context as to like what makes you feel really qualified to do this work. I heard you mention like certain models and certain trainings and certain systems that you're within.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'd love to hear that first, and then yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the evolution of it was, well, what do I want to say? I think that first I agree with you is that like there's so many different types of coaches out there. And I think that it's helpful to kind of compare some of the work that people do. There's coaching, there's mentorship, um, and there's kind of like managing and support. And sometimes it all gets bundled under coaching, which CTI for sure, but I would agree is like not all coaching. So mentorship is a little bit more like, I've been there before. Let me hold your hand and guide you forward. Let me give you advice from my experience. Sometimes there's like training, like I've been trained in this model, and so I'm going to impart that wisdom or teach you how to do this certain thing. Um, like the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, would really define coaching more as no agenda, right? Like the client gets to lead the conversation, and it's not advice giving. Um, it's not about me, the coach. My job is to create the container, to create the space, and to help you feel more empowered in your own inner wisdom, your own inner leader, to help you move forward with empowered choices. And my personal perspective, I think, helps a certain demographic of people find me because I have an education background. More educators seek me out. And there's times in my coaching where I say, I'm going to take my coaching hat off for a second and put on my mentor hat, and speak to you from that like educator lens. But most of the time I stay in coaching role, and they maybe just find that helpful that I have context and previous experience of being in the education world as well. Um, but yeah, I think for me, I think the formal training is really supportive. Um, the resources and I don't know, I think just like the heart of like, yeah, I'm here to coach from a way that isn't about me. Like I'm looking at you, you are fully resourced and whole and have all the answers that you need, and it's my job to create the container and the conditions for you to find that inner wisdom and bring it forward.
That makes a ton of sense. And when it comes to kind of like your specific coaching style, where I guess your niche within coaching, you mentioned like bringing your educator background. So there would be folks who would seek you out for that, which makes total sense. And outside of that, I guess, how does your coaching style kind of differ? Like how would you describe how yours would differ from someone else's?
Yeah.
And how do you try to attract? I know we're in this entrepreneurial group together. That's how I got to know Jess. And the lady over is very into like, how do you attract your most ideal client? And so just curious like what that looks like for you or sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Well, I think here I also bring in like my work teaching yoga. So another like big branch of what I do is I teach vinyasa yoga classes, but prenatal and parent and baby, which is the sweetest part of my week. um, and so I meet these women who are going through incredible life changes. There's this natural identity shift, whether that's going from not yet a parent to becoming a parent, and what that does, the ripple effects for the rest of their life, right? Their career, their partnership, their personal time, their like what they value, everything is sort of has the opportunity to change or is just changed. Or like a parent of one to a parent of two, two to three, etc. So I find that the people I end up working with are either in this education camp or this motherhood camp. And for most of them, they're in both. The people I end up working with are both like mothers who are balancing the work and life priorities. And a lot of them are also educators. So I've worked with a lot of people who are also in corporate and in entrepreneurial worlds as well. But there is a large contingent that is this motherhood and education. And I'm trying to balance it all. So my style is this mix of mindfulness and strategy, leadership and wellness. My business is called Lead and Be Well. And so we kind of come to the space with the understanding that they have a lot to do, that there's a lot they're here to do, whether that's being leaders in their families, um, or leaders in their work, whether that's their school or their network or their business or, their therapy, whatever it is. Um, and they're like, and I want to feel good. So I can do that. So I can run around with my kids. So I can support all of these people that I lead. So we hold space for inquiry questions that last half the year or the entire year of where they want to grow, what they want to inquire about. And it's usually something around their wellness or something around their leadership. And it might be leadership identity. It might be, okay, I know who I am as a leader and what I value. And then how can I put strategy behind that to have a positive impact? Or it might be that they come to me because they're like, I am not well. I am not taking care of myself and I want to. And so maybe we work on beliefs, right? We like get to the beliefs around what they deserve. And sometimes it's very strategic of like, okay, well, let's go to bed at this time and meal prep or whatever it is. So it can kind of go in a lot of different directions there.
And that kind of leads into my next question, which was, this episode's coming out at the very start of the year. A lot of folks are taking stock of their lives and kind of just assessing what they want that new year to look like. Maybe having a coach, maybe not, whatever. And so I'm curious, as you're working with like the folks you work with, do you notice there are certain milestones, maybe like new motherhood or maybe job transition? So this kind of piggybacks with what you were just saying, that people are going through that can lead them to really needing coaching, or do you notice like a stage of life? Because I know coaching is not for everyone, but for those who would be like ripe and ready for someone like you to really support them, I guess in your experience, who have you noticed that being? And yeah, the sort of person that you've noticed really benefit from this sort of support the most.
Yeah, I love that question. Um, so I just wrote a book and I'm going to bring it in for just a second. I wrote this book this fall. It's called It's All Connected, and it's leadership themes that go through the chakra system. And the very foundational one is about the root chakra and leading with purpose. And our root chakra is connected to anything that is considered our foundation. So our community, our family, like the makeup of our family, our jobs, our finances, anything that supports our safety, our stability, kind of where we're safe and where we belong. So I find that people are often craving coaching or ready for coaching or seek out a coach when something in this foundation shifts. Job change in finances, whether that's like a loss financially or an increase, right? Like, oh, how I want my life to look and feel changes. Family, like we mentioned, right? Like having kids or experiencing a loss, a move. So any of these things shift our foundation and it sort of brings up the question, well, where do I belong? What do I value? Our values are part of this as well. What is my purpose now in this new season that I'm in? It sort of opens the door for this new chapter. And it's the energy of earth. And so a coach can be really grounding, right? It can help us figure out, well, what do I value in this season? What matters most to me now? My purpose was XYZ. Is it still, or is it something new? And what are the structures, the systems that I need in this chapter to help everything else, right? To help my relationships, my self confidence, my ability to show up with compassion and heart, my ability to speak my truth and trust myself and see how everything's connected. Everything starts at the root. And so I find that when there is something that changes, I often talk about it as like a growth edge, right? When we're a new job, a new title, a new family member, a loss, a gain, feels like, ooh, something changed. Maybe I feel a little bit unstable, and I could use some support in feeling more at home in my body, in my life, in my leadership, in this chapter.
And hearing you speak to that, I'm curious, do you have clients that work with both you and like a therapist at the same time? Or, and how do you kind of distinguish what they provide versus what you would provide and kind of articulate that to your clients?
Yes, great question. So many people do. I know a lot of people who have a therapist and a coach. And the super, super simplified way to think about it is that therapists will go into the past. Coaches are a little more future oriented, and then they both really overlap with the present. So if, something comes up and it's connected to past trauma, I am not um, certified or equipped to let's dig into that, like where that came from, what's that all about. That would be a therapist. I might say, I noticed that you're having an emotional reaction. Where do you feel that in your body? Right? Because we're still here and I can still hold that container safely and we can still process emotions, which is probably very similar. Um, and then we might, you know, access our wisest self and choose how we want to proceed forward. But yeah, I mean, very often clients will say something will kind of get triggered or be brought up, and they're like, I'm going to talk to my therapist about that. Or bring something from therapy to coaching and say, yeah, I kind of worked through this thing, and now I'm ready to take some aligned action forward.
And so, for those who've listened to this and they're like, okay, I might be a good candidate for a coach, do you have any sort of like intake or just questions you recommend someone ask themselves or like ask of a potential coach to kind of determine whether they would be the best fit to work with someone? Or can you provide just any guidance for the search for someone?
Yeah, I think it's actually making me think about when we just chose elementary schools for my daughter because she just started kindergarten this year. Um, I think that to me, I think knowing like what that coach is all about, right? What that coach values, maybe what their perspective is an important thing to know, right? Like, okay, this person really is passionate about helping me balance work and life, or is very passionate about um, me feeling like my most empowered self, right? Just sort of like understanding the values of the coach. Um, and then sometimes you also just need a vibe check, right? Like, so having a connection call with coaches, I don't know a coach who doesn't do that, I think is really helpful because you can ask them, you can get a sense from meeting with them, but also just ask questions about, well, how would we work together, right? Like, how would our sessions feel? Um, and you can get a sense, right? Some coaches might have a more direct style, and some might have a softer style, right? So you can just kind of get a sense of, do our personalities work well together too? And I think just on the individual side, getting curious around like, well, what do I want from this coaching experience? Do I want clarity on something? Do I want loving accountability? Is there a shift in my mindset I want to make? Or is there a goal I'm working towards? What's beautiful and perhaps overwhelming at times for people is that it could be so many different things. And so I think and a coach can help you clarify as well, but having a little bit of that clarity beforehand, like, I really want to work on my mindset, is very different than I want to launch my business. And so you might figure that out and then choose a coach from there.
Yay. Okay, love that. Helpful. And to wrap this up here, do you have like any, I mean, I'm sure you have a ton of success stories, but just any story that would be helpful for us to hear about maybe someone who went to your program or just how you've seen coaching really work in your own life, something like that?
Yeah. I will actually share um, something from a coaching call that just happened today. So this is like the end. This is the last week before winter break. Um, and so I'm meeting with, all of my clients basically either last week or this week. And we do end of the fall, end of cycle reflections. Um, and so with one of my clients today, we've worked together for a couple years, and she was like got emotional talking about how the big shift this session was around self-trust. And that as a result of getting some of her organizational systems in line, practicing and planning, working together on mindset and confidence, everything is just starting to feel so much easier. And her ability to trust how she learns, give herself the tools she needs to learn, and then trust her vision, and then like take aligned action from there. She's like so hopeful and so inspired and has seen so much impact in her school community. And I don't know, it just like brings me so much joy to hear that. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of internal work. Sometimes people come with maybe wanting some external things shifted, but the work ends up often being internal, right? More self love, more self trust, more self compassion. Yeah.
Love that. Shout out to that person wherever you are. Good vibes. Sending them your way. This is really fun because again, I have your website. I know we're in the group together, but I did not know the extent of this. So very lovely to get to observe it and hear it. And yeah, for any folks who are interested in coaching specifically with Jess or even more broadly, I will have her information in the show notes as well as the book she referenced, which is so cool. Congrats on that. And yeah, outside of that, is there anything else you'd want to add for folks before we wrap up here today?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I think that that little note at the end around self-compassion in whatever season you're in is something I want to kind of underline, right? I'm sure that anyone who's listening is holding many roles in their own life, supporting and loving on so many people around them. And yeah, creating space, whether it's with a coach or with their journal or on a walk in nature, to pause and reflect and celebrate themselves, can go a long way. So, and I wanted to say thank you to you. Thank you for having me on.
For sure, I'm happy to. And that self-compassion piece is a great reminder. I was like, I should do more of that. Hey, so thanks again, Jess, for joining me. That was such a cute segment. Appreciate you thoroughly. Get a coach. If there's something you want to execute and you're not really sure how, you heard how effective that can be. Um, and if you've got the funds and you've got the capacity, something to think about. And yeah, all in all, what I really like about self-growth specifically is just there's more than one opportunity, or there's more than one path to kind of get to where you want to go. And so the purpose here is to just kind of explain that other path. So again, reach out at jadonnalive@gmail.com with any thoughts or comments. I look forward always to engaging in that way. And yeah, we've got a couple other interviews coming up. I want to make sure I get a couple solo shows in the next couple of months as well. But in the meantime, I will chat with you all in 2 weeks. Go ahead and take it easy. Breathe deeply. Let me go ahead and put my feet flat on the ground and do one I did the deepest breaths I've had all day. Let's go through our nose and out of our mouths, and keep doing what you do. I will catch you next time. Same place, same vibe. Bye.